From Recorded Future News and PRX, this is Click Here. The Munich Security Conference is kind of like Davos, but for policy wonks instead of the rich and famous.
Welcome to this year's Munich Security Conference.
It was founded in 1963, and it brings together heads of state, diplomats, and business leaders from the world's leading democracies for 3 days of meetings and presentations. And that's where I caught up with Anne Neuberger, the former Deputy National Security Advisor for Cyber and Emerging Technologies. She was in the Biden White House. And we ducked into a hotel coffee shop just outside the conference's security perimeter to talk about all things artificial intelligence, including the latest AI entry from China, DeepSeek.
I think DeepSeek showed a very powerful lesson, which is, we've learned this in any number of technologies. The tech is most, what's the best mousetrap and what's the easiest and cheapest to deploy.
From Recorded Future News, this is Click Here's Mic Drop, a longer listen to one of our favorite interviews of the week. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and today, a conversation with Anne Neuberger. We talked about everything from DeepSeek, the Chinese startup that appears to have developed powerful artificial intelligence on the cheap, to how AI might aid the competition for the future world order. Stay with us. Click Here is brought to you by Progressive Insurance. Fiscally responsible, financial geniuses, monetary magicians. These are things people say about drivers who switch their car insurance to Progressive and save hundreds. Visit progressive.com to see if you could save. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company has affiliates. Potential savings will vary. Not available in all states or situations. I'm Dina Temple-Raston, and this is Click Here's Mic Drop. Back in January, U.S. financial markets took a dive after China's DeepSeek announced that it had built one of the world's most powerful AI systems using significantly less computing power. Where AI companies use about 16,000 specialized chips, DeepSeek uses a fraction of that amount. Without getting into the details of how they did it, suffice to say they experimented with a way to use chips, and it paid off. And because they laid out what they did in a series of papers, other AI researchers will likely use some of their methods to reduce the overall cost of building AI.
They innovated a great deal practically and technically in the way they generated the outcomes and in the costs of that. And I think that proved, and indeed, U.S. AI companies will be adopting some of those innovations.
Some of China's innovations came despite years of export controls aimed at ensuring that China wouldn't have the most advanced chips to develop their own AI. Some experts are saying that that by restricting China's access to advanced chips, we're only accelerating their ability to do some sort of innovation domestically. Do you think that's true?
I think there's some nuance there in that we know that the export controls on chips certainly have made it harder for China to make advancements. We also know that when there are constraints often lead to innovation. So we certainly know that as a result, China has had to be more creative with regard to how do they build more efficient models? How do they generate the outcomes they're looking for with the computing constraint? And frankly, I think we really need to focus also on the role of data, specifically high-value data training sets that lead to significant advancements.
One of the key things here, she says, is that countries around the world use Chinese technology, and China vacuums up that data to use back home. They don't have the same privacy protections that, say, Europe has.
What makes China so capable in AI goes beyond the compute. It goes to also what's high-value data. In that case, millions of Hikvision cameras around the world deployed, generating images that can be used to train facial recognition models. That can be used domestically in China, or because we know Chinese tech is deployed around the world as part of China's approach to strategic competition in tech. So in the race and competition between autocracies and democracies, AI will help the autocracies because their lack of civilities and privacy controls means they can deploy faster.
How concerned are you that AI models, particularly those developed outside the U.S., could be used to conduct sophisticated cyber attacks against things like American infrastructure?
So certainly as you think about the steps needed to design and conduct a cyber attack, finding vulnerabilities in code, identifying a target, seeing where that target is vulnerable, and then conducting the attack, whether that's a country, whether that's a criminal for financial gain, AI definitely accelerates any number of those steps. And we're seeing various adversaries do things like build a customized spearfish email. So certainly AI makes a big difference on offense. I personally think, given the delta between offense and defense, it's so much easier to attack than to defend. AI can make a bigger difference, in my view, on helping cyber defenders if we move out quickly in using AI for the cybersecurity mission.
It's particularly helpful to defend against cyber attacks generated by AI because, perhaps ironically, one thing AI is very good at is sniffing out other AI.
So AI can be used to help find patterns that can help tell you that something was generated by AI. And that could apply to text, that could apply to images. I'll give a practical example. So when you think about, missile launches and the need to detect a missile launch quickly in order to alert missile defense, one of the hardest parts of that is missile launches are often mobile. They're moved around to be stored and hidden. There are patterns that AI can use to help find where a launch might be, who are the individuals who work on this mission to help missile defense systems. Anything that's generated by AI from a pattern perspective can be used on the flip side.
So if you think about the possibility of conflict between the U.S. and China over Taiwan, Neuberger says AI could have a profound effect on that fight.
Clearly, advanced AI models that are trained on different kinds of ships, different kind of military practices, military maneuvers, can make a big difference in being able to detect and conduct military operations. So that's a good example of where we can expect to see China applying AI as part of its strategic military planning.
When we come back, Anne Neuberger talks about AI and the strategic competition between authoritarian regimes and democratic ones, and how we may need to adjust our thinking not just about newfangled technology like AI, but more traditional national security problems too. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Morgan Sung, host of Close All Tabs from KQED, where every week we reveal how the online world collides with everyday life.
You don't know what's true or not because you don't know if AI was involved in it.
So my first reaction was, haha, this is so funny. And my next reaction was, wait a minute, I'm a journalist. Is this real?
And I think we will see a Twitch streamer president maybe within our lifetimes.
You can find Close All Tabs wherever you listen to podcasts.
So back in the summer of 2013, this thing happened that rocked the intelligence community.
My name's Ed Snowden. I'm 29 years old.
He's the former National Security Agency contractor whose leak of agency documents set off a national debate over the proper limits of government surveillance. Anne Neuberger was actually at the NSA, assessing risks against the agency shortly after that happened.
And when I look back, and I saw firsthand the loss of trust by the American people and divisiveness between government and the U.S. tech sector. That came because technology, moved far faster than policy and law, than transparency about how we were using powerful technologies in ways that really mattered to American citizens, in ways that mattered to partners around the world. So I walked away believing that that was avoidable and that we had to find a way to work together. And I think given that in AI, the engine, the partnership really is the private sector, this is upon us as a country to really consider that from the outset in the way we deploy AI in the most sensitive domains. Because I think it is really critical that given we will see AI is an advancement, we can expect to see it a part of countries, companies' strategies. I think we in the U.S. and democracies have to ensure that we deploy in a way that retains the trust of our citizens and our allies as a democracy. I often think about we are in a competition for the future of the world order, and a part of that is who we are and our values as a democracy, as well as the power of our country as a home for the most creative work.
And she said, in some ways, when it comes to cybersecurity, we haven't been creative enough, and she'd like to see that change.
The traditional way of looking at cybersecurity, let's be very candid, wasn't working. And I think as we look at that and we say, what are the creative approaches we need to do? How do we approach this with the key partners, which are both private sector, both the entities that need to be protected, hospitals, the companies that produce the tech, and then other countries? And how do we do it in the context of who are the actors, and how do we make it riskier, costlier, and harder for them?
This is something she thought a lot about in her job at the White House as Deputy National Security Advisor. Take ransomware, for example.
The set of policy approaches ranged from helping to make hospitals harder targets, helping to ensure that companies who build technology build more secure tech from the outset, so it's easier for hospitals to deploy that. And then saying, how do you take down adversaries' infrastructure? How do you freeze and seize cryptocurrency, which is often used to make those payments? And frankly, how do you work with governments around the world? Because we were all dealing with this.
And they eventually began to zoom in on the financial component of the problem, something the U.S. had success with in the past with things like terrorism financing. Back in the early 2000s, they had a lot of trouble trying to stop terrorists from using the informal Hawala network to finance their attacks.
Countering terror financing was a space that the U.S. worked hard, doubled down, and then really had an impact. Cryptocurrency has become the new Hawala. It funds all kinds of transnational crime. It is the way that countries launder money, whether it's terror financing, whether it's weapons profiteering, etc. Focusing and doubling down and saying, okay, how do we work with virtual asset service providers to ensure that at the very least, funds can be frozen, share bad wallet information, work with foreign governments around the world to help train them in understanding how to do blockchain analysis. All of that work was underway. A big part of it happened under the Counter-Ransomware Initiative, which brought together 71 countries to do capacity building and blockchain analysis to put in place anti-money laundering in cryptocurrency. All in parallel to doing that strategic work, practical efforts to put pressure on the really small set of actors doing this work needed to move far faster.
So you've had a little time away, some time to reflect on all these things you've been working on for so many years. What's your big takeaway now?
So as we think about the larger strategic competition for the future of world order, the competition between the U.S. and China, Russia, an increasingly troubling bad actor in a number of hybrid ways, I think sometimes we're far more prepared to use advanced technology for our national security missions versus to defend against adversary use of it. We need to be far more agile and quick in trying new policy and defensive approaches. And that's really reflecting on that, a call to action for us to be willing to try things, take a pause, explain why, take a pause, see what we learn, and move forward, versus sometimes carefully deliberating on all of the puts and takes to where it takes us far longer to protect ourselves from either country or criminal use of advanced technology that impacts companies, that impacts governments' operations in a way that's really we shouldn't be tolerating.
Sort of seems like you're saying we're letting the perfect be the enemy of the good.
That's a good summary. Sometimes. And reflecting on it, sometimes good enough, with a preparation to always go back and assess and review and consider, and doing it transparently to explain.
From Recorded Future News, this has been Click Here's Mic Drop. It was written and produced by Erica Gaida, Megan Dietrich, Sean Powers, and me, Dina Temple-Reston. It was edited by Karen Duffin. We'll be back on Tuesday with an all-new episode of Click Here. Have a great weekend.
If you're looking for a daily guide to cybersecurity news and policy, sign up for the Cyber Daily from Recorded Future News. It serves up the day's most interesting and important cyber stories from our sister publication, The Record, and then aggregates all of the big cyber stories you might have missed from news outlets around the world. Just go to therecord.media and click on Cyber Daily to get all you need to know about the world of cybersecurity right in your inbox.